What's happening, people? Today we're going to be doing something a bit different. So usually we're doing films, whereas now we're going to be doing some TV
This is our first
series as
TV
well.
series, yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, we've only
Alright.
done films so far, so this is our first review on a TV series. So
Wow.
yeah, it's kind of I guess we're kind of making this a bit of like superhero month.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
I guess it
August
would
for
be.
us is superhero month. We're gonna cover a load of superhero stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah, let's do that.
yeah, because there's sort of like a lot's being dropped. So
Yes.
with today, we are going to be covering not that. No, that's a film, Daniel.
So
Today we're going to be covering The Boys,
season
season
four.
4. So yes, would you like to do an overall? I'll let you start,
So
Dan,
what
since you've got
general
such
general thoughts, yeah?
wonderful opinions on general thoughts on series 4 of The Boys.
Disappointed is my one word I can use for this. I'm not gonna say it's as bad as I've seen a lot of people say it's online because I don't think it is. But I think this took an incredibly long time to get where it was trying to go, and I think that is the absolute biggest issue with this season. I think the boys from like to this point has been super consistent. I think season 1, 2, and 3 they only got stronger as they went on. So for this then to take the kind of quality drop it did, I think it was super noticeable personally myself, and I think aside from certain characters and arcs, I think this is by far the most disappointing season, and I don't think it picked up until episode 5, and then from 5 onwards, I thought it was good, but I was disappointed throughout, and there was times in the first 4 episodes where I was bored. I will openly say I was bored.
I'm not as brutal. I didn't find it boring at all. I think they tried something a bit different. For me, it wasn't. I didn't find it boring. I didn't find it bad. I think I got like an overall sort of view on it, which I guess I'll probably get into a bit later. But I think the introduction of Sage is what changed this series.
Right.
For me, I think looking at it as an overall thing, I think the whole sort of thing leading up to this, and again, I think with this point of the boys, we know the characters, we know what they're all kind of about. You can still have that sort of boys action. 'Cause I think that was the biggest thing for you, wasn't it? Is the fact that there wasn't as much superhero stuff as
Yeah,
the other
I,
series have
I,
had.
I almost feel like they forgot what this for me. This season felt like they're taking the piss out of a certain demographic, right? That's always been the point, and that's absolutely fine. I love that. This is what I love this about the show, but I feel like they almost became what they were joking about, and it almost felt like they lost sight of what they were always aiming for in the first few episodes. In the latter half of the season, I felt like they kind of almost went back like to how they were, but it took a bit to kind of build up to that, and I just felt like it was missing the point. Maybe I was missing the point, but I didn't get that connection like I usually do.
I think this was. I think for me, this was trying to be a bit too smart.
I
Because
agree.
I think the fact that they brought Sage into it, it's a smart move in a sense of all 3 series. Pretty much like Homelander has been trying to take over. So every time Homelander's gone up against the boys, he's throwing more and more force. We've had the whole like Nazi thing within 2 or 3. Was that 2 or 3?
Season 2 that was.
2. So we've had like there's been a lot of times where he's just got in a new super like a new villain or one of the 7 whatever they are and it's just like thrown like violence at people and it hasn't really got him anywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas this is the first series where they brought in somebody who's just smarter than everybody else. Like the whole point is Sage is the most smartest person in the world. Like that's her superpower,
Yeah.
and I think he, whereas before it's just we'll go toe to toe with you and see what happens. Every time he's done that, he's ended up as much as he hasn't lost, he hasn't won either.
Yeah,
It's sort of
yeah.
just like a clash.
I agree.
Whereas this time, because they've used brains instead of brawn, I think for a lot of this series, it was like the boys were trying things and all the stuff that they've done in the past that's worked hasn't worked
Yeah.
because Sage has always been 3 steps ahead of them. So whereas the boys always had that advantage, whereas Homelander's very just like, I'll just obliterate everyone. I
Yeah.
don't care. And the boys have been more smart about things. I think now they have brains. They've kind of that's what I think is being too smart because you've got the boys trying to be tactical, whereas the 7 Homelander and Sage have always been ahead.
Yeah.
So it ends up in this weird sort of almost mental battle,
Yeah.
and until the end when it kind of all comes together and makes sense.
Yeah.
It definitely takes a while to get going, because it's like bubbling all these things underneath where, every time the boys seem to be getting somewhere,
Yeah.
they get brought back because Sage has already thought of that and has already reacted to that. And it's I can understand the criticism because it isn't as action heavy, but I think it's more of a character piece.
My bigger issue to what you're saying, my biggest issue to what you're saying is I did not care about Sage.
No, and that's fair enough.
And I think that's maybe
fair.
that's why I didn't connect to it then, because what you're saying makes total sense. But I just thought they brought this character in for this season, and then this character tried to like overrule the whole season. And I get what they were going for, but I don't think we had enough time to actually get to know this character, because obviously this character has a lot of things they can do outside of being smart.
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, that's where I think they've almost been a bit too smart for their own good. I think with the boys in general, when you just throw things at the wall and seeing what sticks, most of the time it sticks. When you're just having these brutal, crazy, over the top battles, most of the time you can just kind of enjoy it because it's stupid, it's over the top, it's wild. Yeah. Whereas I think like the smart side of things just didn't work as well this season. I think by the end of it, when it all comes together and the whole plan has worked, and the fact that it's tricky, wasn't it? Because it's one of those where by the end of it, you don't know if this was the plan from the start, fair enough. But you could also argue that they kind of threw a load of shit at it, and then by the end they kind of went, "Oh, this is all part of the plan."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing where, again, if this was the plan for the end of the series, then fair enough, and it's pretty smart. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to know. I don't think it'll ever come out, but it'd be interesting to know if the end goal was the legit plan from the start of the series, or whether they kind of just got there and then kind of went, "Oh, it's the same plan all along."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to see. But yeah, I think this, again, I wasn't bored by it. I can probably agree it probably is the weakest series they've done.
Yeah.
Again, I kind of enjoyed it for the more tactical side of it, rather than just I appreciate trying something new.
Yeah, and I can agree with you to an extent. I don't think this is a bad season of TV. That's the thing. I don't think this is bad.
No.
I think it's very different and very it just felt different.
The high bar.
Yeah, it just felt different compared to the other seasons. And I mean that within the characters as well. I did not care for Starlight in this season in the slightest.
No.
Did not care.
This was Homelander and Butcher. This whole series was about Homelander and Butcher.
You've nailed it.
Everyone else was kind of there.
Yeah. And I think we probably will talk spoilers because it's been out for a bit now. I think we can kind of just touch into things because I don't think there's anything major in this season that's an actual spoiler until the end episode. Yeah,
this is. I mean, I didn't really mention the fact there's gonna be spoilers. We're just gonna be talking about the series. So if you don't want spoilers, then fair enough. Then I would watch the series. And if you want to watch this after and sort of like, this is basically just gonna be us speaking about the series and reviewing it in our own sort of like personal ways and what was good, what was bad, blah blah blah. So yeah, it's spoilers and that are just gonna be part of it.
But if we go through characters, Starlight, I didn't care. Huey, he had a good storyline with his dad, which I thought was good, but I thought wrapped up way too quickly. I like MM. MM is probably my favourite still going forward. I love MM. Frenchie, I don't know what the thought process was behind this character this season. I'll be honest, I have no idea. Butcher, obviously, always great. I think his death storyline, obviously he's not dead, but I think that could have maybe been worked on a bit more to kind of really hammer it home, but I don't think they worked on it quite as much as I would have liked them to.
Yeah, no, it was interesting because we'll just say it. The whole thing is he's dying throughout it, and he's arguing with himself. So he's got like this tumor because of the fact he took B. He's got a big tumor going on, and he's arguing with, I can't remember his name, but it's the ex-wife who died from series 1. Was he in the series 1 she died?
2.
Oh, 2. And then again, I can't remember the other guy's name. I think he was in series 3, wasn't he? So it's
the first time we've seen it.
Oh, was he?
I think so.
Oh, okay. So he's basically like an angel or devil sort of thing going on.
It's basically Fight Club.
Whenever he's Yeah, so he's sort of like having these voices in his head. So he's having full blown conversations with himself. Like there's never anybody there. There's a whole sort of thing going on. He basically hits a point towards the end of the series where he's almost dying, and then he allows so like the dark side basically, because he's got the V in him. If he allows the dark side to come through, he can just use his powers, which is
Yeah.
this wild sort of.
Venom.
But he seems all right at the end
Yeah, yeah,
again.
yeah.
And it's a bit like, yeah, they fucked that. They did fuck that. I can. It's hard to argue it. You can't go from being like he was given into the good side and then he was dying, and then as soon as he kind of went to the dark side, he's kind of healthy again.
Yeah.
It was a bit odd. Like you literally went from a hospital bed dying to coming out
Walking
using
into-
superpowers
yeah.
and going off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also
So
think,
that was odd.
yeah, with his dark side character being Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I feel like they wasted that actor. He's such a good actor, and I feel like that could have been a really good villain or something in the Seven or somewhere. I just feel like
Yeah.
it was a bit
If
wasted.
he was real, it would have been a lot better, really, wouldn't it?
So I didn't realize
The wife was more of a voice.
I had no idea he was going to be fake until it revealed, which, I mean, you know, well done for that reveal. I thought it was good. My little brother already predicted it in, like, episode 2. He was like, he's not real. And I was like, I don't think they're going to do that. And it turns out they did. But I feel like that was a bit wasted. I thought Kimiko was wasted this season. She's one of the strongest characters in The Boys. And she was literally...
Yeah, they've weakened her a lot tonight.
It was literally just a relationship plotline that went nowhere, which I thought was pointless. And
Yeah.
then if we're going into the 7, Homelander is at the top of his game here. This is Homelander's season. He's amazing.
Oh, 100%.
The episode where you get
is.
him going to the scientist who brought him up is fucking incredible,
Yeah.
brilliant. But then you've got the Deep, who is just a joke now, which I think is funny because of how much of a scumbag he was in season 1. So this was always going to happen, but how far can they go with this joke?
Yeah, I think they somewhat brought him round this series though. I think they've gradually broken him down and down and down, and then I think the whole sort of they kind of fucked it again towards the end. But I think the interactions with Sage and Sage kind of making him being like, because the what's it bloody name? Christ, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. The manager, the one
Ashley,
who's lost all
Ashley.
her hair and all that, Ashley. She's like just degrading him, like just like doesn't give a shit. She's just sort of like, oh fuck off, you little loser, like sort of thing. And then eventually he sort of stands up to her, and then he kind of realized that like, oh, I am like a superhero. Like I can treat people like shit. Like he's almost doing like he's almost like a shit version of Homelander, like in his head. Do you know what I mean? In his head, he's sort of like. So they kind of retroact that, and then they bring him back by making him a bit more brutal, because there's loads of scenes where he's just brutalizing people, you know, grabbing humans and just obliterating them. And then they kind of fuck it again at the end when they have sort of like Sage kind of like belittle him. And well, I mean, we'll talk about it now. Noir is back, but it's an actor.
This is another one.
Can fly.
This is another one where I was just like, I don't know how much I liked it. For a while, I was like, this is funny. I kind of liked it, but then it just kept going and going, and I was like, this. I missed the Noir. That was almost scary. He was like a fucking psychopath, and I loved that. Like he's such a good character.
And sorry, I was going to say that unfortunately they gave him the perfect send off.
They did, and that's what I mean. If you're gonna kill someone, let them be dead. Don't bring them back to just make them a joke. It kind of like left a really sour taste in my mouth. The bit where you get that action scene where it's Deep and A-Train, not to get too into it, but Deep, A-Train and
class.
Brilliant scene, but I just felt like this is a totally different character. Like this isn't even Black Noir at this point. It's a totally different character. Who else have we got? A-Train. This is my favourite.
A-Train has the biggest arc, isn't it?
Yeah, and this season for him is so important, and I think he crushes it. But everyone else, I just didn't care. Firecracker, the new character, she's all right. She was okay.
Yeah,
She had some good
it
scenes
was
with
a bit.
Homelander, but...
Yeah, it was a bit of like, I think she was a means to an end.
Yeah.
In a sense of like she had a bit of history with Starlight, because the whole thing of this series is the Starlighters versus the Homelanders sort of thing.
Well,
so there's
let's
like a
be
big war. It's almost
this whole season is basically the American debate, and this is where
this is basically Homelander's Trump and Starlight is Biden.
This is where
I
it
know
lost
Biden's
me.
gone. I'm not going to get into that stuff, but that's what we're going with here.
This is where it lost me, because I am not a politics person at all. Like, I'm very happy to say I don't really care. And obviously, being in the UK, we're not really the American politics people. I know there's a lot more interest in it than there ever has been, but we're not really into it like that.
It's not so extreme. Like, we don't have the big rallies and we don't have that sort of thing. We just kind of, they'll go around and we'll kind of have a vote, and it's a bit more, not to be that guy, it's a bit more civilized rather than being like I think in America it's like it's a pompous, it's a show, it's a whole performance, isn't it, when they're going around doing the states and all that, whereas here it's a lot more understated, to say the least.
This is where the show lost me in the first 4 episodes, because I don't care, because on top of all the characters I just mentioned, which is already enough for one season, you've then got Newman, you've got Edgar, you've got all these people that are in the background constantly, and there's just too much going on that none of the storylines ever felt like they completed. And then you've got random bits happening, like people do die in the season, pretty high caliber characters die in the season, and it just didn't feel earned or wrapped up. And this is where I'm lost with it. This is where I'm like, clearly the next season is going to be fantastic, because this is so clearly a setup season. If you watched Invincible this year as well, exactly the same situation. They were setting up these plot points to hammer home in the next season, which I'm fine with. But when your season is just that and nothing more, I can't help but feel disappointed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I'm not 100% if this is accurate or not, but is this probably at the end of series 3? Was this then when they become aware that it was going to be 5 and done?
I thought it was probably.
So because I mean the first sort of 3 like just felt like they were just kind of doing stuff and having fun with it, whereas I think now there's more of like a target. Now they know that 5's coming. There's going to be 5. I sort of mentioned to you before watching it, I was like, maybe this is just going to be, because I remember you saying previously, I basically wait till everything came out and just watch it in a bulk, whereas you were kind of watching it weekly. And I said to you then, I was like, this could be just, I feel like it's going to be one elongated series. So it's going to be like 4 and 5 are going to almost be one big series with an overarching sort of thing between them two. And it definitely seems that way.
I'm kind of sick of this trend in TV currently, though, where we're getting like basically a 0.5 of a season, which is really doing my head in. So we've had it with this, we've had it with The Bear, and we had it with Invincible all in 1 year. So I feel like we haven't had a complete... Sorry, not to spoil any of those shows, but I feel like we haven't finished any of those arcs in any of these shows because they're waiting for the next season, which is becoming more and more of a problem, because they're doing it with films these days too, where you're getting a part 1 and then you're waiting 2 years for a part 2. And I think this is becoming an issue.
Yeah, I think this is where a lot of disappointment comes, especially with ending TV series, because I think you put so much pressure on. I mean, obviously the classic example is Game of Thrones. Like, I was never.
Celine Dion is singing.
Well done, nice. Celine Dion is singing the Olympics. Great stuff, Celine. I love Celine. I know she's actually singing. Fantastic. I hope you're in The Boys series 5. They saying sorry.
We were talking about the fact that this is where the issues are coming from, because it feels like it's not a complete season.
Yeah, I completely lost my point. Sorry. Celine. Thanks, Celine. Celine, completely lost my point there. For the overarching, just continue for a bit. It might come back to me now.
As I was saying, with the amount of characters.
Sorry, Game of Thrones. My apologies. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you there. But I think this is the problem, especially with Game of Thrones being a classic example of something that kind of went so far and then shit the bed at the end, because there was so much pressure, because this thing had built over I don't know how many series. But by the last one, there was so much pressure on this being the magnus opus, the big ending to it, that you can't end something. You can't. There'll always be somebody that goes, "This is shit."
You're always gonna set expectations way too high, regardless to even one person, and that's gonna set up a chain reaction.
Yeah.
So I understand this season is not as bad as the general audience is saying. It's not, right, and I get that.
I thought you said it was more positive.
No, so it's been very split, but you see people online basically just rinsing it because it's a trend, right? And I'm very much for saying that, yes, a lot of this didn't work for me, and a lot of it I found tedious and boring, I'll be honest. But I still don't think it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Do you know what I mean? I still think it's a good, competent TV show with very good visual effects and very good acting, very clearly, right? It's still that caliber of show, but this is just a disappointing season of that show.
Yeah, and again, I think that's where the bar's been set so high for this show that I think, I think the more in retrospect, the more like we sort of speak about it, the more I kind of realize, like, I think I kind of not chose to ignore it, but
Meat
I
riding,
think
that's what you do.
I
Meat
think
riding.
no, not quite that bad, but I think I enjoyed the good bits. I enjoyed more than, and I enjoyed the good bits, and I think the bad bits I didn't really take into account.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I mean, I the things that were good, I really enjoyed it, and I kind of, as I said, I kind of enjoyed this. So this is where it's gonna get. It's gonna sound a bit weird when I say this, right? And I don't mean this in a literal sense, but this almost somewhat, and I will explain. I'll preface this by saying I will explain. But this almost felt like an Infinity War to Endgame. Just hear me out.
Yeah, I know
Just
exactly.
hear
I
me
know
out.
exactly how you're gonna do this.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say this is gonna be. I'm not saying this is anywhere near the levels, and I'm not saying that series 5 is going to actually be that level. But I think this, at the end of 3, we had Homelander almost losing. I know, like he finally killed a human. In people seen it. He killed somebody, and people seen it, and they loved it. And as much as this is kind of what split the whole sort of people up and all that. But there was a lot of people now that genuinely hate him, and he, as much as he won, that was the first time that he lost, really.
Yeah.
Whereas by the end of this, he's won. By the end of this, like Homelander, for the first time in this entire thing, as much as he's never lost, he's always, every single series they've broken him down a bit by bit by bit.
Well, I mean,
They've
do you want to
always
just
come
spoil
out.
the ending because it's very pivotal to this whole season?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was going to get into it, but what I meant is, like, every series they've broken him down somewhat, and the boys have generally always won.
Yes.
Pretty much. Like, they've driven him to a point where he's actually killed a human and he's lost his head, like, and it's like they've won. Whereas by the end of this is the first time where Homelander's won. So he's the whole story of this was that he was going to get Newman. So Newman was going to take over the presidential candidacy. So they was going for a presidential thing. There was going to be a president. They were going to assassinate the president. Yeah. Newman was going to become. She was always going to be the vice president. She was going to become president, and Homelander and her were going to. Well, Homelander's basically going to run her, wasn't he? He was going to be in control of her. So Homelander was going to be in control of America, and he's making these massive prisons where they're going to keep all the soups.
Yes.
So the soups that don't want to step in line with Homelander, he's going to keep them all in his prison. So that's like the plan.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole thing. The end, Newman's dead.
So Newman dies.
So they kill Newman, and then basically a human. So a human takes over. So there's like I don't know what it would be like underneath whatever sort of. I'm not sure exactly how American politics work, but basically somebody ends up taking over, and he's human. Yeah. So Homelander is like, I can do anything to you, and you will have to listen to me. Like, I think there's literally a speech where he comes in, the whole presidential speech, where he literally speaks for about 5 minutes, and he goes, I'm great, I'm working with Homelander, and Homelander just walks straight past him. And it's basically, Homelander is basically now president. We've got all these
jails. Doesn't he hand it over to him?
No, so I think he's basically, he's not
thought he passed power over
the human
to him.
is. No, I think he's got defense. It's part of the part. Like, he's given power of some sort. I'm not exactly sure. It'd be like having the cabinet, or like, do you know what I mean? It's almost like, I don't know if he's vice, but it's like he's basically armed forces in charge of that sort of thing. So he's got like his own. He is basically vice president. He's basically president. But yeah, I think, like, I can't remember the exact term for it. But yeah, Homeland is basically in control, and he is putting everybody who doesn't want to step in line. He takes them all out, and they're all going to these prisons. He's bringing up all these prisons. The boys have gone. Homelander's won. Basically, at the end of the series, Homelander's won. That's where the comparison comes. Where I think in the next series, if they can get it right, there's a very big if, but I think if they can get it right, then it would make this series worth it.
Yes, and I completely get where you're coming from. My biggest issue with everything you just said is that I think this show started off very subtly kind of poking fun at the the American political race and stuff like that. Now it's turned into the way we review this show is by talking about the politics, and I don't buy into that so much, because at its core this is a superhero show, and then the fact that we've now got to get into the whole American politics debate is just like, it's kind of crazy to me. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know the comics, so I don't know if this is a thing in the comics. This might be being quite, they might be following the comics on from this, and this might be a big story and a big arc and a big sort of thing. I don't know if they're still going, or if they finished. So I don't know if they're being faithful to the comics or not, or where this is a step they've kind of taken. It's a bit interesting, because I don't know if would Trump have been going for presidency probably around the time, because it's as we sort of mentioned, I know like he would have had his presidential candidacy thing, but I don't know if he would have rerun before they made this series. I'm not 100%.
I think so, but I'm not sure. I'm not too sure.
I think, as we've mentioned, it's very close.
Yeah.
Homeland is basically Trump, isn't he? The whole sort of thing is that he's very like left wing, right wing. I'm not sure whatever it is, but yeah, he's very sort of we'll make America great again.
Yeah,
basically.
And again, I think my bigger issue came from the fact that before this, I binge watched Gen V because I hadn't seen it, and I thought that was such a good show because it focused on being Supes, and when The Boys does that, I love it. And if they focus on being Supes while having that story in the background, then fine. Then so be it. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. But when you push the political story to the forefront and basically don't have any superhero things going on at all until the last like 3 or 4 episodes, that's where you lose me. Because especially with Gen V, as I said, from episode 1 to episode 8, it's pretty much non-stop. You get the odd slow down scene here about basically kind of seeing the humanity in Supes, which I think is very good. If that was the plot line more about the humanity and Supes, I'd kind of be more locked in. But because it is basically Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, but they've got superpowers, it's not that interesting.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Again, I think this, as I said earlier, I think this has just been a bit too smart for its own good. This series. The whole, I think with the whole Sage thing, they've kind of tried to make it like every time the boys do something and make a mistake, and every time this happens and make a mistake, and there's always like a reasoning for everything. Again, I think the Homelander stuff is great in general. I think that's kind of what they tried in this one, where that's where I kind of got the comparison from as well, is the fact that in this one it almost felt like Homelander was getting rid. So the whole thing with Homelander is that he needs appreciation, he needs love, doesn't he? That's like that's his weakness basically, is that he needs people to love him. And I think this bringing someone like Sage in and kind of being like, you run stuff and I'll get my shit together. So then by the time it all comes together, I'm like, there's nothing that can stop me. And he kind of does that in this series. Like he kind of gets rid of his weakness as such. But then, again, like by the end of it, it kind of unfortunately, it's one of the series where it takes a while to get going. They get really good, and then
it ends.
The end of the last sort of series, just takes everything they built and just gets rid of it. Like we have the whole character build of Homelander, and then by the end, he's a disheveled mess because like they lost, but then they won. Like, do you know what I mean? He's a mess, and then Sage finally comes back and is like, no, this was part of the plan. This is. So it does, they do kind of shit the bed. The more I kind of speak about it, the more I'm like, it's a messy series. It is a messy
really
series.
Messy. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And another thing I think is a big negative to this season is I think they lost a lot of their comedy spark. I don't think.
Yeah.
It's not funny season at all, and like that's fine.
It's not funny.
Yeah, if you're gonna take a more serious approach, that's absolutely fine. But then they do the stupid things, like the whole human centipede part, where the guy can like duplicate himself and he's basically fucking himself. Like they add those bits then, and they just feel tonally so different that I don't even think I laughed. I think I was just more like, okay. It's like they're trying to bring that old boysness back into it while still being serious.
Similar to the whole sex dungeon thing as well.
That's what I mean. That episode I didn't find funny. I thought it was a good episode, but I was just like, what's going on here? Because we've been serious for the first 5 episodes, and now you've got Huey basically getting sexually assaulted. It's very odd.
No, it is. I mean, we should highlight some good bits, because I think we've been slightly like, this fucking sucks, and it doesn't. Again, I think we're not trying to say that this is a shit series. It's just, again, I think the bar is so high, especially again with Gen B, like with the first three series with Gen B, like the bar is so high that it's disappointed. I think this
100%.
series is disappointing.
But there's some mad positives here. Like Huey's dad, to begin with, a fucking shining light in this season. His arc and his storyline, although I think they wrap it up way too fast, I think that whole... Was it 2 episodes you get that big arc? It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
It's yeah, and unfortunately it's basically an episode, isn't it? It is basically an episode.
Like I said,
where I think it's probably the episode...
2, but I think, yeah, you get 1 episode, which is the main whole thing.
I think there's like an episode previous where like he ends up in hospital, and then they kind of bring Huey's mother in, which is a bit, again, another bit of a random sort of bit. I know, yeah. And then we have the whole. I mean, that whole hospital thing is fucking incredible.
It's fantastic, and Simon Pegg is so good in this role. Like, so good to see him back finally.
Sad
because in the first few episodes, he's literally in bed, like he is bedbound and in a coma, which is sad to see because he's obviously such a big actor. But his end arc in this whole season is brilliant, but very sad. It made me very emotional. But although it kind of feels like you wasted Simon Pegg, and I do think it wraps up too fast, I think that bit is really good. I think the farm episode is absolutely amazing. But
incredible. You actually know why Simon Pegg ended up in the series?
Yes, because he was supposed to be Huey. They took him for Huey.
Yeah, it's crazy that is, isn't it? Yeah, they literally, I think they made the character of Huey around Simon Pegg, didn't they? But then he was too old. Yeah. Which is bananas. But yeah, the farm episode is fucking mental.
So here's the thing: I loved the farm episode when it was being crazy, but then kind of the rest of it, I was a little bit like, again, where are we going with this? But when they did the whole sheep thing and like all that, and there was some good comedy bits in that episode too, which was very funny, with Frenchie being like, "This man is in no state to fuck a sheep." Very funny. There's some really good bits, but I just wanted more of that craziness, and even with Butcher having 3 different voices in his head, I don't think they quite touched on it enough for me to be like, oh shit, this is wild.
Yeah,
Joe Kessler is the guy. Joe Kessler is the guy.
Yeah, I know he is. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because they so far, because the whole thing with the whole Butcher's arc, really, again, he's sort of ill, but he wants to Ryan, so he's trying to get Ryan away from Homelander and back. Yeah, so there's like Ryan's, he's there. I like him. Unfortunately, he's going through a really awkward time in his life where his voice is just all over the place in it, and it's difficult because he's in quite serious scenes, but it is really distracting. He's kind of voice breaking and stuff. But I feel bad for the kid because he's not a bad actor at all. Like, do you know what I mean? I think he plays his part really well. I think the when he comes round, he goes from being like a little childish kid to kind of becoming a bit more like, you know, when Homelander starts getting his year, and he comes a bit more brutal. Like the whole scene where he's got
the film director,
on his knees, like begging and stuff, and she's just slapping him. Like, great scene, like, and there's some great bits in there.
Coordinator, where he fires him at the wall. And
he just throws him. Yeah, there's that sort of like argument of like the good and bad side, isn't it, where he can't help, you know, he's trying to control his powers and he can't help but be Homelander's kid, but he doesn't want to be Homelander's kid. I think that whole thing is great, and they bring him so far where Butcher is just basically bringing him back around and trying to get Ryan back on side, and he finally sort of gets that point, and then just again throws it all away again at the end. He's like, he finally gets the kid and he finally gets him back on board. It's finally almost him being like, he's seeing the light side. Then he has moments where, like, again with the doctor, he just chops his leg off. Yeah, and you're like,
I mean, the end goal, the end of the arc here with Ryan, I think was really fucking stupid. Again, it's a spoiler, it's quite a big one, but at this point you've watched this far into the video, it's fine. Ryan kills Stillwell. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Is that her? Yeah, Madeline?
Yes. Yeah.
He just throws her against a wall and she dies. And I was just like, hang on.
She dies.
Wait a minute. Because obviously she's kind of been like a nan to him the whole time. And for him to then just go...
Yeah, well, she's been a massive part of the series, hasn't she? Yeah.
And they kill her and that's it. We move on. And I was like, well, hold up.
That's the thing, is he kind of just leaves. So they try to get him into this like thing, don't they, where they basically want to keep him locked away, where they can build him up to eventually kill Homelander. That's the whole sort of thing. And then he finds out his plan, pushes her, sort of like kills her accidentally. Because again, he can't really control his powers, and then
No.
just leaves.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like, oh, okay. And then I think that's kind of the instigator into making, allowing, Butcher to let Joe Kessler take over, and then that's where he gets like all his powers. He basically gets some powers where
He's Venom.
like
He's
these
basically
like
Venom.
tentacles. Yeah, tentacles come out of his guts, and he is the one who just rips Newman apart,
Newman apart.
just
Yeah.
tears her apart.
Yeah.
Just walks in, tears him apart, says, you know, there you go, you can thank me later, and
Yeah.
just leaves.
This is what
So we've had all this build up of him coming good, and then he just goes, fuck
Yeah.
that, and just
Yeah.
gets rid of it all again. This,
It's such a messy, like narratively wise, it's such a messy
is.
season. Like again, don't get me wrong, there are
It is.
elements of really good in here, and I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to certain characters in the next season. Ashley obviously took V in the end, which I think is going to be so interesting when they bring that round. That's going to be
and it
awesome.
seems to be going in their head,
Looks
didn't
like
it?
Megamind,
So
doesn't she?
it's
Yeah.
going. She's going to end up. Yeah, I was about to say that she's
Yeah.
going to end up looking like Megamind or
obviously you
something.
saw
Yeah, so
the-
that's fascinating.
You saw the post-credit scene. Soldier Boy is coming back for the next season.
Yes.
Which
Yes,
is,
Soldier Boy's
that
back.
is the shining
So which is-
light here, because Soldier Boy is one of the
Yeah.
best characters of the boys, so that is going to be amazing. But again, it's like
Yeah,
we're
and it seems
for
like
the
he's
next
going to
season.
be. It seems like he's going to be with Homelander this time, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah,
Homelander
yeah.
basically comes across him, so I think they're going to be together, which is going to be fascinating to see how that goes. A Train's another one. I think A Train. We did kind of touch on him earlier, but I think he's great.
So he
I think
has
this
his
series
save,
is.
doesn't he? His save in this season is fucking fantastic. That
Yeah.
scene, because
Yeah, so he
MM
has, like-
sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say this is the first time they actually. I think this is the first time they actually mentioned the whole save thing.
Saves come into this.
They're
one a
all
lot.
staged.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so basically there's a whole thing where like they get Ryan to do his first save and he's like, oh yeah, cool, I'm gonna go out and actually save someone. Then there's a whole setup, there's a whole staging thing, so they rehearse and this is where he accidentally kills
Kills the
the actor basically, doesn't he? So he's supposed to save this girl, he's supposed to push him away, and it's supposed to be a whole thing, but he accidentally uses too much force and just kills this guy. And so yeah, there's a whole thing with all these saves are staged, and then there's like a little bit with his brother. I don't know if anything happened with the actual actor who plays A-Train's brother, because he literally turns up once.
Yeah, he does.
And it's a bit like, because I think there's a bit where A-Train is sort of speaking to his nephews, and he's like, yeah, I saved a guy about like
Yes.
telling the story. And his brother kind of wheels up, and it's just like, oh, you, yeah,
It's bollocks,
he's
yeah.
lying to you,
Yeah.
like it's all staged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there, it's all staged, don't listen to him. Disappears, and that's all we really get.
Yeah.
It's a bit odd.
It is odd.
Like you just get that little like 30 seconds clip,
Yeah.
especially because this series is highly based on A-Train.
Mm.
But yeah, there's a bit then where MM basically has a panic attack and like his heart sort of stops working, and then A-Train literally takes him to like, so A-Train they turn A-Train, don't they? This the whole series of this is that A-Train starts working with the boys, who's basically getting sick of
It's
Homelander's
great.
shit.
It's such a good. That is such a brilliant arc. Brilliant.
Yeah, so they finally get like they sort of get him. So there's all this thing where he's sort of like working in the background, like working both teams. Eventually gets caught out in the end and kind of disappears. But yeah, there's a whole bit where MM is down, and that's all he does is he takes him to the hospital, doesn't he? Drops off for a stretcher, like leaves. But as he stops, there's one kid who
Yeah,
sees him,
it's
and
so
he's that
good.
one kid who just sees him and realizes, oh shit, you're an actual hero that
Yeah, and
saves
A-Train
people.
realizes,
and
oh
that's
shit, I save people.
yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I think his arc in this series has been incredible. I
Oh.
think he's going to be a vital part of Series 5.
I really hope
Because
so.
he
yeah.
is the only one of the boys who hasn't been caught.
Yeah, so I really hope he is a really pivotal part in the next season, because he's so good in this season, and the actor, like that actor is crushing it. Like he's so good as A-Train. He's great.
Yeah.
My favorite actor in the show is
Yeah.
Chase Crawford, though, who plays the Deep. Like that guy is amazingly funny, and his relationship with that fucking
mean, he's-
squid. Oh, so funny.
Honestly. That death is, again, like, it's like devastating but hilarious at the same time, because
Fucking
there's like there's a whole bit where he's kind of having, well, he's with stupid as this sounds, going to sound ridiculous, but he's with the octopus. He's his girlfriend that he's keeping hidden because, you know, people he doesn't want to know that she's still alive and all this. And then he starts having an affair, I guess,
Yeah.
with Sage. There's a whole thing with him and Sage sort of like sleeping together and stuff. And then yeah, he just smashes the tank, and like the octopus he closes the door where the octopus is like drowning or dying or like can't breathe without water, and it's so funny because it's like he's literally going no, and then he starts crying. And then, like, there's about 10 seconds, she goes, please! And then you can hear her crying again, please, Dee, please! And then it's quiet, and he's like, oh. And then, like, there's like, please, I'm not. It's like, she just keeps coming
really
back, like, I'm not quite dead yet. And it's a great scene. And I mean, the guy is ginormous as well.
Yeah.
He's probably the biggest guy there. Like, when you see him next to Homelander, he fucking dwarfs him.
So
Like, he is
funny.
in
He's such
incredible
good.
shape. Like,
And I think him and Sage's relationship is very fun as well, where she has to lobotomize herself to get on his level. I think that's a really fun story beat, and I think they do it enough where I'm like, this is very funny and this works and I like what you're going with. But then it kind of just stops. But the bit where she lobotomizes herself and she's at the like party for the presidential thing and she's stupid eating the cake,
she gets shot, doesn't she?
Yeah, shoots her. It's so fucking good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah, so the whole thing with her is that her brain just regenerates so quickly that you can basically shoot in the head, and she just becomes stupid. Like, she's really stupid whilst the brain's regenerating.
Yeah.
So her brain's dead, she's still functioning, and then once she regenerates, she becomes smart again. So yeah, she lobotomizes herself to interact with him. So that was great. But again, they ruin that at the end where she ends up sleeping with him and Black Noir at the same time, and then just kind of leaves, and you're like, what?
What was the point?
And then obviously she comes back again at the end. But yeah, there's a lot of that where you kind of go, oh, that's quite an interesting story, and then yeah,
and I think Black Noir for me this season was such a confusing character because
pointless.
Did you hear about the behind the scenes stuff though, which I thought was very interesting? So there's certain scenes in the show where you see Black Noir asleep. Did you clock onto these bits?
Oh, narcoleptic. Like.
He's for real. The actor is genuinely narcoleptic, so all those scenes are real. Which I thought was a very clever way of writing it in, which is very funny. But then I just feel like they made Black Noir a joke this season, and it made me very sad. But that, as we touched on earlier, that action scene between those three heroes, where he starts fucking flying. How do they explain that? Because I think he's supposed to be a different.
No, he
person,
does. I mean, it's never really. It's they never, because obviously Homelander kills him, doesn't he? In the last series, Homelander kills Black Noir, but I think the public never know about it, so they basically bring a new actor in to not have to, because obviously in the start, especially Homelander's like on trial and all this sort of stuff, which just kind of gets blown over. He ends up getting not guilty. But yeah, I think they kind of brush over that to be like, oh, we'll just bring another Noir in, so nobody knows that. The old Noir, and I think they did something similar with the invisible guy in the first one, when they kill him off, but then
they still mention Translucent as if he's still around. But
because he's invisible, they can kind of get away with it. But yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, the whole Black Noir thing, I didn't really care for it again. Like, I don't really see the point in him being there. I think you could have just brought in the guy, whoever the actor, whoever the hero's supposed to be. You could have brought him in as a new part of the Seven.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know why you needed to be like, oh, it's Black Noir, but yeah, it's interesting, but not enough for me to be like, oh, I can't wait to see where this character goes next series.
And this is what I mean. I think to kind of wrap this all up, I think realistically, I think this season had decent ideas, but just didn't execute any of them to the level it probably should have. And I think that's the biggest issue. I think season 5, whether they turn it into films, because they've been talking it's going to be a certain amount of like little films, basically, to end the season, which I think would be a good idea. But they need to nail it now. Like, season 5 needs to nail it to make this season worth it and make the whole show worth it. Because we can't. When did this start? 2019, 2020, something around then. So this show's been running nearly for 5 years. So we've had 5 years worth of content. And if they end it badly, it's going to feel like such a waste of time. Because these characters are so good. It's such a good world to be in. But if they don't nail this ending, this could all feel very wasted. And I really don't want that. So I think that's how I feel leaving this season.
No, I agree. And I think the more I speak about it, the more I can see yours and other people's point of view with how they kind of treated it. Again, I'm watching it, I wasn't so, I think only like speaking about it, actually thinking about it, I was a bit like, oh yeah, I can kind of see the flaws in this. But yeah, watching it, I wasn't as offended as other people. But yeah, again, I think there is a lot of pressure on this 5th series, films, whatever it's going to be. There's so much pressure on them actually nailing this finale now. And I think Oh, so I think you mentioned actually very recently that they've revealed, I think today
Literally, I
in
was
Comic Con.
literally about to touch on this myself.
Oh, okay,
So they've
yeah,
just
go on then.
they've just announced a prequel show in the 50s with Soldier Boy and Stormfront, right? Which is very clearly sounds like a very cool idea, and I think executed it's probably going to be very good. But I think they're doing Gen V, they're doing Gen V season 2, they're doing The Boys Mexico, and they're doing that 50s one. Is this the issue? Are they now doing too much and not focusing enough on the core story? Is that the issue?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think if they can knock, if the boys as a whole, you can go from series 1 to series 5 or film 5, whatever it ends up being, that you can go, that was incredible. Then every spin-off can always be like, you're all right having spin-offs
Yeah.
with something that's incredible. Do you know what I mean? As long as that foundation is there,
Yeah, I
then
agree.
you can go, yeah, this is sick, and you can bring characters in, take characters out, do sort of things. Add, like, if it's a certain time period, like as you said with the prequel sort of stuff, you can bring characters in that were from that time, things like that. So I think you can get away with it as long as that foundation is solid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if they can nail this, it doesn't matter as much. It'll probably hit a point where people go, I don't want any more of this shit. Um, this is basically why people have Prime.
Yes.
Like, let's be honest.
I
This
agree,
this is
totally
what
agree.
people have Prime for.
Yeah.
You know, like The Boys and probably Invincible to a degree,
And I
but The
think
Boys
Fallout
is
will
what.
end up being one of those shows that's why you have Prime. But yeah, I completely agree. The
Yeah.
reason you have Prime is for The Boys. I completely agree.
Yeah, yeah. As far as like watching things on Prime, that's what that is what holding Prime up right now. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably where all the series, all the spin-offs is coming off from, because this is the biggest thing they've got. So yeah, I think as long as they nail the ending, then
It'll be worth. It'll be fine.
I'm alright with spin-offs. Yeah,
Me too.
I'm alright with spin-offs and stuff because you can choose. And if I watch something and I can go Gen V class, and I might watch the original thing, I might watch the Mexico version and go, oh, that was a bit of shit. I didn't really like that one, but that one's good. That was like,
That's
you can
fine,
kind of
yeah.
pick and choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you like and dislike, as long as the actual boys bulk is
Good.
ended well.
I completely agree with you. So to rate this, should we do TV shows out of 10 to kind of mix things up a little?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
no,
so
sure.
for me personally, I'm gonna go 6.5 out of 10 for this season because I think its strong points are very strong, but I think the weaknesses are equally as weak. But I think it does more good in setting up things for the next season where I'm interested. So I can't say I completely disliked it because I very clearly didn't. But this season was a massive step down from specifically season 3, which I think was incredible. So I think it's a massive step down, but I still don't think it's not a bad show. It's still a very well made show, well acted show. But I just think they've lost sight currently on what they're going for, and I just hope they pick it back up.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. I think I'll go I think in hindsight, when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see the issues, but watching it, I didn't have those issues. I'll go like a 7.5 because I think looking back, I'm a bit like, yeah, okay, there is a lot wrong, but watching it, I enjoyed it. You know, I had a good time with it, and I could see what they were doing with the series. Again, I think it was an interesting take on it, and I think hopefully if they nail it, then great. But yeah, I could see what they were trying with it. It was interesting to see them trying something different rather than just hammering people, rather than just being like a big clash. I think the mental side of it was an interesting take on it. But yeah, 7.5, and hopefully they nail the finish.
Yeah, I also just pray that Anthony Starr, Homelander, gets an Emmy nomination for this because this season's performance specifically is on par with Heath Ledger's Joker. I'd go as far as to say I think he's very much on par with that level, and I think that episode where he goes with the scientists and just fucking abuses them is something else. It's one of the best episodes of The Boys alone, and that he's just so good. He's so good.
I mean, that shot has already become iconic.
Yeah.
The shot of him in the elevator covering blood is already... I've seen it everywhere.
That's what I mean. So
already.
He needs to be nominated in some regard for this, and I hope he does because he's pretty much carrying the show on his back at this point, which is... He's just so good. He's fantastic. So I hope for him specifically, and I just hope the next season is what I wanted this season to be, which is just something insane. That's all I want. A big ending that's going to...
I want a little prediction from you.
Okay.
Just a one thing.
Okay.
Will Homelander die?
I don't think so. I thought he'd win this
I
whole
agree.
thing. I thought he might just end up being the victor in the whole show. But I can't see that happening actually. But I can see him becoming this major, more of a threat than he is, where he almost becomes unstoppable. But no, I don't think he'll die.
No, I completely agree.
I think we might
It's
get,
just
I think we might get some of the other 7 go. I think maybe the Deep might go, and A Train possibly.
I think in Series 5, I think we're going to have a lot of deaths. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
I think it's
hope
going to
so,
be a bit of a bloodbath.
because you know what I'm
Yeah,
like in
I
regarding
think-
shows
I think-
where I think they need to get the balls to start killing main characters off. I feel like
Yeah.
that's about most shows at this point, and I think the boys need
Yeah.
to do that now.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a more than one from both sides.
Yeah, I agree.
From the boys side and the 7 side, that there's going to be like at least 2 or 3, maybe more. But yeah, for sure. Ah, well, very very nice, Dan. That was a very nice
Yeah,
conversation.
very good discussion on the boys. It's not overly negative and not meat-ridingly positive. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a good balance in the middle where we've got to realise that yes, it's not as bad as everyone's saying, but it's also there are flaws. That's it.
Yeah. I think as we said like before, as much as we've sounded very critical, I think we've just got extreme expectations with this thing.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Now, so yeah, hopefully they nail the finish. And yeah, hopefully. Well, I'll tell you what. Leave a comment. What did you think about the boys? That's probably going to be divisive, to say the least.
Yeah.
But yeah, just tell us your favorite arc from this series.
Yeah.
Let's be a little more positive on it. Let's be a
Yes.
little more.
I think obviously for me, it's,
So, yeah,
it's
looking
definitely
forward to the last
A-Train.
series.
For me, A-Train's so good in this season.
Yeah, I could probably agree with you. To be fair, I love Frenchie.
We didn't really touch on him, but yeah, I don't know what
Yeah,
they
no,
butchered
pointless.
him. They butchered him.
Yeah, no, they kind of did. But yeah, lovely stuff. Thank
There you
you,
go.
everybody, for watching, listening, whatever you do. Catch you on the flip
Thank
flop.
you very much. We'll see you
wankers.
next time.